Are you looking to learn how to ace a technical interview? Would you like to see a cloud architect interview demonstration? If so, this video is for you. Hi, my name is Michael Gibbs and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects, and we're an organization dedicated towards building high-performance cloud computing careers. I've been working in technology for over 25 years, and I've been coaching and mentoring others for over 2 decades now. In today's video, we're going to do a live cloud architect technical interview. Interview training is very essential and should be part of your technical career development program. The better your technical interview, not only are the greater your chances of getting hired for the job you want, but a great interview will also increase the salary the organization can offer you in most cases. See, the interview is where you show the employer that you're a solution to their challenges. And the bigger and the better solution you could be, the more you're going to be worth to the employer. So that cloud architect technical interview is essential. And in general, a technical interview is critical for any technical careers, whether it's cloud architecture, network engineering, it really doesn't matter. The key to the perfect interview is showing the hiring manager that you are the key and you are the solution to solve the hiring manager's needs. So what we're going to do today is, first and foremost, we're going to show you what hiring managers desire. And we're going to talk about what hiring managers desire because you need to be able to show the hiring manager on your interview that you can meet all those objectives. Show that and you'll get hired immediately. So first we're going to talk about what the hiring managers desire. Then we're going to do a live interview, and then we're going to recap the interview so you can see what we did, how we did it, why we did it. So first and foremost, what do hiring managers desire? See, if you know what a hiring manager desires, and they're going to be the decision maker to determine whether to hire you or not, you know how to position yourself in that interview. So after polling hundreds of hiring managers over the course of my career, after asking 50 or more recruiters what hiring managers desire, and being a hiring manager myself, I can tell you exactly what hiring managers desire. Become these things, show this to the employer, and amazing things are going to happen to your career. When you ask employers what they desire, specifically hiring managers, here's what they overwhelmingly say. First and foremost, they want someone that could do the job, meaning technical competency. Then employers want someone they can trust. This is very important, someone they can trust, and you must demonstrate that on your interview. People typically demonstrate that they're not trustworthy on an interview. Instead, you must demonstrate that you're trustworthy. The next thing employers look for are people that are competent and safe, meaning you know what you know and you know what you don't know, so you don't cause problems, you don't cause outages, for example. They want to know that you're energetic, enthusiastic, a team player, and that you're someone that can go above and beyond. These are some things that employers care about. So in your interview, you must show the hiring manager that this is what you are, and then you are a solution to your problems. And that's what's going to be necessary to get you hired. So the next step, we're actually going to do a sample interview.
Michael, thank you very much for joining us in our firm. I'm very excited to learn more about you and see if you're going to be a good fit for our company. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely, David. And first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to meet with me. I've been now working in technology for over 25 years, and I've loved every last moment of it. I started out in networking, then I worked in security, then I worked in cloud computing, and I've had almost every role. I've worked as a systems engineer, I've worked in consulting engineering, I've worked as an architect, and I've worked in leadership positions. Here's the thing, I love tech, and I've been working in it forever. I like teaching tech, I like coaching tech, I like designing architectures, and realistically speaking, I like to bring out the best in others and really coach people. So in my 25-year career, I've even coached and mentored others for 25 years.
That's excellent. That's very exciting to hear. Well, I would like to learn a little bit more about what your understanding of the cloud. Can you tell me how to secure the cloud computing environment?
Absolutely. So as you were gauging my perception of the cloud, let me tell you my perception of the cloud, since I've been building clouds for decades before they even called it the cloud. The cloud is really nothing more than a virtualized network and a virtualized data center. And therefore, the things that go on in the network or the data center are, for the most part, what you do in the cloud. Now, we have a little more flexibility in the cloud, but they're for the most part the same. Here's how I would typically recommend securing the cloud environment, which is what I've done hundreds and hundreds of times in the past. First and foremost, I like to protect the perimeter of the systems with a firewall. The firewall basically keeps bad guys out and protects your internal users. Right behind the firewall, I always want to include some type of an IDS or IPS system. So if anything were to get past the firewall, we can use the IDS IPS system to thwart it. Now, if and when we're dealing with web applications, which we typically are, we often want to make sure we want to use some DDoS protection. For example, what we would use is something like Cloudflare with AWS Shield, but we've got to have some kind of DDoS protection. Now, that's part of your protection, but let's assume they've gotten past your firewall, your IDS IPS systems, and your DDoS path. We still want to filter them. So we're going to protect our subnets with an access control list. In AWS, they would call it a network ACL. Typically speaking, in the data center, it would just be an access list on a router. And then we're going to protect the systems themselves. If we're in the cloud environment, we're going to use something like a security group, which is going to determine, who is allowed what like source, destination, IP address, protocol, port number into the compute instances themselves. But that's not enough. On the instances themselves, we're going to add some malware protection and some endpoint protection, maybe an antivirus, an additional host-based firewall. And that's how we're going to lock down the system partially. But we still have to secure the systems. We're going to secure the systems by disabling unnecessary services. We're going to patch them in order to do that. But that's only part of the process where you can use identity and access management, or AAA, whichever term you like to use, to determine who's allowed onto the systems, what they're allowed to do, and then we're going to log it. We're going to make sure any data that we have is encrypted so that if anybody were to steal the hard drives or the systems, it's protected. And then we're going to actually encrypt our data whenever it's public to make sure that no one can do anything with our data. That's part of the security process. I could talk much more about the policy or things if you desire.
That's actually perfect, Mike. It sounds like you have a very good fundamental knowledge of security in the cloud. How about some of the differences with virtual machines and containers? Can you tell me the differences?
Absolutely. So like I said, I've been in this network and data center industry for over 2 decades, actually 25 years. And a virtual machine is when you take a server and you add what's called a hypervisor. And the hypervisor is a very thin layer of software plus a kernel. And that will divide your server into multiple logical servers. So each server inside of the server will have its own operating system and its own applications, completely logically separated by the hypervisor. Typical hypervisors include things like VMware ESXi or KVM. They're two of the more common ones. Now, a container, by comparison, it's almost as if you're virtualizing an operating system. So what you're doing is inside of the operating system, you're creating these logical isolated spaces called containers. And inside of the container, what you'll have is you'll have your applications and dependencies and little bits and components of the operating system, and that's it. So containers are basically lightweight, fully isolated versions of your application, and they sit inside of an operating system. Now, with a virtual machine, you're using a hypervisor and you can install any operating system you desire. In a container, your containers have to use the operating system that's based of your system. So example, if you have a Linux server, you're going to have containers that would need to run on Linux. But a container, because it doesn't have its own operating system, is a very lightweight thing to do. You might be able to put 10 or 20 virtual machines on a powerful server, but you might be able to do hundreds of containers because they don't have their own operating system. So a virtual machine is taking a server and virtualizing it to create multiple logical computers, and containers are creating logically isolated spaces inside of an operating system.
Excellent, excellent. I take it you've had a lot of experience working with containers and virtual machines in your 25 years. Am I correct?
Yes, I've worked with a lot of containers, virtual machines, networking, storage, pretty much anything you can imagine in either the network or the data center or security for the last 2.5 decades.
That's great to hear. How about on the programming side? Do you know how to, say, code an algorithm like a reverse binary tree?
I want to be completely honest with you. I have no programming experience whatsoever. I've spent my life in networking, cloud computing, and security. And realistically speaking, these are the areas that I know a lot. And if you want to really assess my competency, I can tell you, we can talk about those things. I will tell you this, that if it was necessary to be part of the job, I would love to learn how to do some type of software development. It's just something that I haven't done in the past. But anytime we're talking about technology, I love technology. I'm highly motivated about it and super enthusiastic about learning. So if it's an opportunity or requirement, I'm happy to go there. But realistically speaking, my area of expertise lies in networking, security, and cloud computing.
Wonderful. Well, I'd like to understand some of the more technical aspects of BGP. I understand that you do have some experience with that.
Absolutely.
how do you select the path on BGP?
Great question, David. And there's realistically speaking about 10 things that go into the process, maybe 11. And it starts out with prefer the pass with the highest weight. And then it goes to prefer the pass with the highest local preference. And then the routers are going to prefer paths that the router originated themselves, meaning one that you learned from another router because it's more believable. From there, you're going to take the path that has the shortest number of AOS hops. Autonomous systems are the paths that your data goes through to get to your destination. So the shorter the number of hops, the shorter the path. Then we're going to start looking at the lowest origin code. And this is where we're talking about whether it's coming from your IGP or your AGP. Then we're going to prefer the paths with the lowest med. From there, we're going to prefer EBG paths over IBGP paths because they have a lower administrative distance because they tend to be more reliable. Then we're going to prefer the path with the closest IGP neighbor. Then we're going to pick a path that's going to minimize the effect of routes going up and down. For example, if you've got a route going up and down constantly and we've implemented route dampening for scalability purposes, we're going to prefer the more stable path. Then we're getting to the point where at this point, assuming everything's the same, we've got to come up with an election decision. So this is where we start to get to what I call the silly things, like prefer the router or the path that comes from the router with the highest router ID, meaning the loopback address on the router. So that's just using something. And then if they're the same, which they shouldn't be the same, this is where you prefer the path with the lowest neighbor IP address. So realistically speaking, that's how BGP makes its best path determination.
Excellent. Well, that is a great explanation. I understand that you know BGP, which is great for a company. I wanted to ask you, do you have any questions for me?
Absolutely. What are your goals? What are your challenges? I'd like to know what your goals and challenges are so that if I were a part of your organization, I could really help you meet your goals and challenges.
Perfect. That's a great question. We do work with a lot of clients in helping their cloud needs. We do have a team. However, right now, we're really looking for someone that's strong with a networking background and part of our cloud computing team. We have other areas filled, but I really feel that the networking side can use some help. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So networking is a place where I could truly help you. I started my first networking job in 1999, and I was one of the first Cisco certified internet experts back when it was this impossible 2-day test over 20 years ago. In fact, my number is 7417. I've actually had a chance to consult on 6 of the 10 of the world's largest ISPs, which means I've affected predominantly about 50% of the internet. I've consulted to the world's largest global banks. I've consulted to the world's largest healthcare organizations and the world's largest global organizations, helping them use technology and leverage the network and design better systems to improve their performance. Networking is where I've spent most of my time. And I'm confident that not only could I improve your networking capacity, but I could also teach networking to the other engineers and architects that are in your organization to help bring up their level. See, networking is something that I love. Again, I'm passionate, energetic, and enthusiastic about not only technology, but also coaching and mentoring others and leading teams and bringing out the best in others. And I've spent decades doing this.
That is wonderful to hear, Mike. I know that you have extensive experience, and I wanted to add one more question, and that is, why do you want to work for our company? I mean, you have a great experience with all these larger companies. What brings you to Dave's Cloud Computing Services?
Dave, that's a really great question. I have had the opportunity to design these global systems, and I've loved every last minute of it. But what I noticed in my background is when you are a global bank, you can afford really good technology solutions. And when you and I spoke and I looked into your organization, you're trying to provide those same kind of global enterprise scale opportunities and innovations to regular consumers. So given that you're doing that, I view your organization as a chance for me to share with the world some of the things that I've only been able to do for the privileged few. And that's just exciting to me.
That's awesome. Well, I definitely want to push you forward. So you'll be hearing from us soon.
That sounds wonderful. And can I have your email address in case I wanted to reach out to you?
Absolutely. I'll email you my business card.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to meet with you today. I know that you're a very busy person. So thank you again.
The pleasure's mine. Looking forward to talking to you.
Thank you, David. Okay, now that you've seen a cloud architect sample interview, let's recap the interview. Note that the beginning of the interview began like most interviews began, with a tell me about yourself question. Now, in that tell me about yourself question, I worked very hard, and what did I do? I showed competency, motivation, energy, enthusiasm, and passion. See, this is many of the things that employers care about. And in that first question, I answered them. I showed the hiring manager I can be part of their solution. And I did that in the first few seconds. And that's going to set the tone for the entire interview. Now, the next thing you'll notice in the interview is I tried to create rapport as fast as possible with the hiring manager. See, when you have things in common with someone else, you're more likable and everything you say is more valued. If you've ever traveled outside your country, let's say you're an American and you're going to France, for example, and while you're in France, there's lots of wonderful people. They all speak French, communication is challenging, and out of nowhere you find another American who's also lost walking down the street just like you are, and you share a map, you find yourself to your destination, you're instantly friends. That's what rapport is. Now, when you come back home to America, you might find that there's really nothing common in between you and your friendship dissolves. But when you're over there, you have something in common, there's common ground. So try and do that on the interview. So first, I showed the employer that I was capable in the tell me about yourself statement. Then I found an opportunity to create rapport, and I did so by sharing the manager that he and I had some common ground. That automatically kicked off the interview and made me more likable for the rest of the interview. Now note, the hiring manager asked me a question for which I did not have the knowledge. And there's two options. I could have bluffed or lied, which 99% of the population does. And what would that do? That would show the hiring manager I'm someone they cannot trust. So after interviewing thousands of people, I'll tell you, most of the reasons the interviews get rejected is as soon as I ask a question, someone lies to me and I can't hire someone I can't trust, so gone. So by comparison, I was honest. But I wasn't just honest. When I was speaking to the hiring manager, I did the following. I told him that, this is something I did not have the experience. I told him where I had experience. I showed them I was highly motivated, energetic, enthusiastic, passionate, and safe. And that I would go above and beyond and learn whatever's necessary for the job. See, I proved a lot of things. I almost checked off every box when I did that. I showed that they were someone I can trust. I showed that I was safe. I showed that I was energetic, enthusiastic, passionate about technology, and I showed that I'd go above and beyond by learning whatever's necessary for the job. So I almost checked off every box with something, but I did more than that. I then pointed the hiring manager in the direction of the things that I know. So now the hiring manager can and will most likely ask me the things that I do know. And that's how the hiring manager is going to assess my competency on my terms. I took control of the interview. I redirected the interview to where I have competency. So this is pretty important. Take control of the interview whenever possible. And in every question where you have the opportunity, try and show the hiring manager that your solution is one of those challenges they're looking for. Now, when you're done, there's going to be a couple of questions. There's often a question of why should I hire you? Again, try to remind the hiring manager of all the qualities they want. So be the hiring manager's dream. Show them that you're someone that can do the job. Show them that you're someone they can trust. Show them that you're competent and safe. Show them that you're energetic, enthusiastic, passionate, a team player, and go above and beyond. Show them there in the why should I hire you. Now, lastly, they're going to typically ask you if you have any questions. Now, this is your opportunity again. Instead of just asking random questions because people told you you're supposed to ask questions to look interested, and instead of asking questions that look like what you want out of the relationship, again, not something you want to do, change it. Ask the hiring manager, like we described in here, what are your goals? What are your challenges? So that I know that if I was part of your team, I could be a solution to your challenges and help you be more efficient and help you live a more comfortable life and help you be higher performing, help you get promoted. Show the hiring manager that you are the solution. That's the perfect reason to ask a question, and it can help sell you into the position. This is really how you deliver the perfect interview. Now, one last thing I'll mention, it's not part of the interview, the thank you note. While you're there on that interview, please get the email address of the hiring manager and everybody else that interviewed with. Why? These are busy people performing a job. And what do you want to do? You want to send that hiring manager, as soon as you're near a computer where you can deliver proper sentence structure, proper grammar, a thank you note. Thank that hiring manager for taking the time to meet with you. You know they're busy. Tell them that you enjoyed the interview process. Let them know that you believe you'd be a good solution and a good fit for their organization, and show how you can help them. Do that within 24 hours. I want to thank you for watching this video and tell you about some things that we do for the Cloud Architect community. Every Monday and every Thursday, we have a free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. On these webinars, we teach you how to interview what hiring managers desire, the skills required to get hired, how to become technically competent, and so much more. We do this completely free on How to Get Your First Tech Job or Cloud Architect Job. We do it on Monday and Thursday. Now, every Tuesday morning, we have a Cloud Architect Experience webinar, and we talk about how to get the kind of experience that hiring managers are going to look at and say, wow, this is meaningful to me, so you can get your first Cloud Architect job. We do that completely free every Tuesday, and a lot of these Tuesdays, we do a Cloud Architect Challenge. You never know, so keep coming. And on these Cloud Architect Career Challenges, what we'll do is we will come up with a complicated technology, a complicated data center type environment, and we will ask you to design a solution to migrate this environment to the cloud. We do it. It's a lot of fun. We do it on many of the Tuesdays. Not every Tuesday, but most Tuesdays we actually do that as well. Now, on Wednesdays, we have a completely free Cloud Architect Career Question and Answer session. We do it on YouTube Live, so you can ask us any questions, and we'll do anything we can to assist you or guide you in your cloud computing career. We've also implemented Ask Cloud Mike. So if you've got any questions on, say, your cloud computing career, you can send us an email to askcloudmike@gmail.com. The link is in the description below. And of course, we will do our best to try and create YouTube videos for you to answer your questions. We can't do it for everything because we get a lot of requests, but we will do anything we can to try and assist you in your cloud computing career journey. Also, if you're working on AWS certifications, we have a completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate ebook. I'll leave the link in the description below. And we have a completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate e-course. Again, completely free. I'll leave the link in the description below. And on June 15th to the 20th, we're going to be running 3 hours per day, a live AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional Bootcamp. It's going to be completely free. There's a registration link in the description below. Please sign up. This will be a live Cloud Architect Bootcamp. We're going to cover the entire AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional Curriculum from a Cloud Architect and a Cloud Architecture perspective. The format will be 40 minutes of presentations per hour and 20 minutes of questioning. So you'll be able to create like a question and answer environment so we can enhance the learning experience. We want the best for all of our students, and even in the free training, we try to include question and answers. It's not enough just to buy a course and not be able to ask questions. So we do everything we can, even our free work, to improve your experience. The link for that free bootcamp is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching this video. We look forward to seeing you in another video very soon.